Video will be talking about the types of cell injury. Especially we'll be focusing and comparing reversible versus irreversible injury. So due to environmental changes or toxic chemical exposure, there could be injury of the cell. And when we talk about the types of injury, we have to think that there are specific organs which are highly susceptible to the injury, like mitochondria, nucleus, and membrane. And we would be discussing the context of reversible and irreversible injury, keeping in these organelles in mind. So that there could be two consequences of injury. One, the cell try to adapt to the stress and regain its own physiology or function. Another thing is like more extreme solution. It's basically cell death. A non-functional cell would be eventually dying. So, cell injury happens due to stress. There are multiple adaptation strategies like hypertrophy, hyperplasia, atrophy, metaplasia, etc. So, all these adaptation strategy is covered in details in other video in the I button. Click on that. But anyway, when the cell undergoes injury, there could be two types of injury, reversible and irreversible. If the injury is reversible, it would be regaining its function eventually when the stressor is removed. If the injury is irreversible, then it might undergo necrosis, apoptosis, or other kind of like non-repairable damages. We would try to understand that part. So let's talk about reversible injury. Let's see what microscopically has changed in an injured cell. So basically, the first thing that is altered is the ATP production. ATP production happens in the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. And when the ATP production is low, all the biochemical pathway that is required for a proper functionality of the cell would be compromised. That means overall cellular function is compromised. Second thing is basically the activity of calcium or sodium potassium ion exchange pump would be decreasing. And this is a passive after effect because all of these channels, most of the cases requires ATP or energy for its functioning. If ATP is low, these functions are suboptimal. There could be other kind of manifestations that could be microscopically seen, that is like ribosomal or polysomal detachment from the endoplasmic reticulum. So generally there are a lot of these ribosomes attached on the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough one, and they are the protein forming machinery. So when they detach and move freely on the cytosol, the translation is altered. Moreover, protein synthesis decreases overall in these injured cells. Also, there are several changes in the plasma membrane could be observed. There could be alteration in the lipid composition, there could be blebbing of the membrane, and many other things. One of the prominent microscopic feature is the nuclear changes. So basically the chromatin becomes clumped. So overall, all these cellular level changes lead to compromisation of the cellular function. It's important to note that one can observe the myelin figures in the cytosol. So these are aggregated peroxidized lipids which are originated from the damaged mitochondria or the endoplasmic reticulum. Now let's talk about the reversible injury, irreversible injury. And in this case, the nuclear degradation happens, means not only condensation, but the nucleus gets basically totally degraded. The nuclear material, the DNA or RNA, is totally degraded by the endonuclease activity. So there is rupture of lysosome, that means leakage of the acid hydrolases into the cytosol. There is plasma membrane damage, there is mitochondrial permeability problems, membrane potential is lost, ATP production is compromised, and all that possibly lead to cell death, like let's say apoptosis or necrosis. So basically the membrane integrity could also get compromised, so that might lead to the cell death. In this context, we should understand that there are different changes happens in the nuclear level. So one can understand this is a normal nucleus, then there is nuclear condensation known as pycnosis, nuclear fragmentation known as karyorexis, and nuclear dissolution known as karyolysis. So these could be occurring at different stages of the damage depending on how intense the damage is. And another hallmark of all this kind of damage is the alteration in mitochondria. So mitochondrial function is severely compromised in irreversible injury. There are amorphous densities and inclusion bodies found in mitochondria. Mitochondrial pore forming complex or MPTP actually lead to several things to be leaked into the cytosol. Mitochondrial membrane potential, which is important for the ATP production and the electron transport chain, that entire potential is lost or dissipated. That is why ATP production is highly compromised in those mitochondria. So I hope that gives you an idea about the irreversible injury. And here is a very quick summary of the irreversible and reversible injury. So if you like this video, give it a quick thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in next video.